All right, it's 6:02. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tia, could you do roll call for me? Thank you.
Trustee Barheit,
Here.
trustee Young, trustee Hopkins,
Here.
trustee Gant,
Here.
trustee Sweeting, trustee Faber,
Here.
president Bukar.
Here. Did we meet open meeting compliance?
Yes, we did.
Great. All right, trustees, do we have approval of the agenda sequence? Is there any changes?
I would ask that if the sheriff's department would like, move them up to the front. That way they can lead as opposed to sit through our endless meetings here.
Okay, is everyone in favor of that? Good. Okay, Dennis, did you have something?
No, I didn't.
Okay, perfect. All right. With that, I don't know if we have any public comments. Did we have a sign-in sheet?
Yes, we did.
There's nothing.
Nothing? Okay, perfect. Okay, president's comments. All I want to say is welcome to 2024. We had a heck of a 23 and I'm really happy that that we have our administrator on board, Cassandra. Her first month has been really a breath of fresh air, and I am very excited to see where we're going to be this time next year. So with that, the only other thing I want to say is that public comments, we are going to start trying to keep these down to 3 minutes. I know that's hard for some people, but we're going to try to do that just for the sake of timekeeping. And with that, we will go into the agenda. So number 1, under presentations, petitions, communications, and other agency reports, we're actually going to start with the second item, which is discussion of Kenosha County law enforcement services.
Good evening, Captain Eric Klinkhammer, here from the Sheriff's Department, the operations command with in charge of the law enforcement section.
So Captain Klinkhammer, we ask that you come to this meeting tonight, or some representation from Kenosha County Sheriffs. Most recently, the Sheriff's Department has been providing us with a monthly crime report, which by all stretches of the imagination really takes the level of information from the past to the future. It increases it quite a bit because it really breaks down not only the village of Salem Lakes, but it also breaks down the other villages, the whole county, as far as you call them hotspots. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it then breaks it down even farther with these hotspots as to whether they're related to violent crime versus drugs versus you name it. And to be honest with you, I really like these reports, the way they're coming out, and I appreciate the fact that you guys are going to this level. If you could talk to us a little bit about the hotspots itself, how it came about, and what exactly is it doing for you guys?
So, at the middle of last year, I think in April, the county granted us a new position of a data analyst. And we've never had one before. So basically, we've taken the generic reports out of our worms, our information system, and did our best with a spreadsheet and sent them out. So now we have somebody who has experience in data analysts and crime analysts. So she worked at 2 other local agencies in Illinois and also worked for the U.S. Marshal Service. So we were very lucky to get her on board. And she's, in the past 8 months, coming up with these reports and programs that help us analyze our data and perhaps even deploy resources differently. So currently, we're in the process of adjusting our patrol areas for our non-contract cars to put them where they're needed the most. And as you can see, for the people that have access to the report, it's along Highway 50, along the interstate, and in the more populated areas. So we've known that. I mean, it's common sense. That's where things are happening. But now we have a, a visual representation of that. So the hotspots on the crime report just kind of show you, they're based on the number of calls in that area and the number of arrests and the number of crime reports. So the darker and the bigger the hotspot, the more that's happening in that spot.
And you've broken it also down, for example, in the area of drugs, you're actually breaking it down with the type of drugs that are considered the hotspot.
Correct. So, and these are seizures basically from traffic stops. So our deputies conduct a traffic stop and search a vehicle and find drugs. So of course we keep records of that. And it's broken down into the, cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, marijuana, LSD, and in, I just got one before this meeting from our data analyst for December, so I'm just looking. In the month of December, we had a total of 30 drug seizures, 30 seizures of different drugs from 18 cases. So, and that's basically on traffic stops from around the county. That's not just itself.
Would there be any information in that report that, I guess I would like to make this accessible on our website, and I'm not sure if there'd be any information in there that we should not allow the public to see? Cassandra, did you have a chance to take a look, or do you know, or if we could use this one, or is there a second report that we could get for?
Well, this report is already broken down, so we have one that's even more detailed for our deputies.
Mhm.
And then we kind of cleanse the identifying data out of it. And that's what we send to you.
Okay,
So this is something the general public could see without giving too much information away.
I would say possibly, but let me work that out through our chain of command.
Okay.
Okay.
I think I would like to do that. I think that would be very helpful.
What's interesting on here as well, when I look at, this is the month of November that we're looking at. Most recently, we saw in the newspapers and on the news, the number of overdoses here in Kenosha County. I think it was 12, if I'm not mistaken, over the Christmas holidays, over a 3-day period or something like that. And 9 of them resulted in death. I may have the numbers incorrect. But I'm seeing on here that fentanyl in itself is large quantities that you're finding. And I'm assuming this is in grams, but I could be
I
wrong.
mean, typically we find fentanyl mixed with other drugs.
Right,
So we test all the drugs that we seize for fentanyl. Very often they come back positive and then they're marked out as fentanyl.
okay.
So finding a stash of pure fentanyl here in Kenosha doesn't happen that often, but mostly it's laced or mixed with other drugs.
Yeah. But in August, I see, if I can give this number out, August as an example, there were 73.77 grams. Is that correct? Of fentanyl seized, compared to most recently in November, 3.63 grams. So it's gone down from the pure fentanyl perspective.
And I would have to find out, but these drug numbers would be mixed in with our drug unit seizures as well. So that may be, they may have had a large seizure during the month of August.
Okay,
That could have made a difference in this number.
all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you could just let us know if this report would be something that we can publish to the general public on our website when we get it. That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yep, thanks.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we will go on to the first item. Presentation and discussion by R.A. Smith on updates to the Village of Salem Lakes floodplain ordinance. I think we're going to put this up on the screen.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Len Recker with R.A. Smith. Been acting as your village engineer for some time. And tonight, what we'd like to do is this is a discussion only topic, agenda item. And really what it involves is an update of the village's floodplain zoning ordinance. That in your zoning code is section 490.45. And a little bit of background on kind of the floodplain zoning ordinance here in the village and previous town is that prior to the village becoming a village, the village's Silver Lake had a floodplain zoning ordinance. And when the village of Salem Lakes became the village it is today, back in 2017, shortly thereafter, the village had to join the National Flood Insurance Program. And that was due to the fact that you were a new municipality, and in order to allow property owners in the village of Salem Lakes to obtain flood insurance through the federal government, it's important that the community be a member of the FEMA National Flood Insurance Program. So back in 2018 is when the village of Salem Lakes became a member of the National Flood Insurance Program through FEMA. There was an initial ordinance back then that was adopted by the village board in 2018, essentially creating this section of your zoning code. And periodically, as the federal or state agencies do updated studies, they require municipalities that are part of the flood insurance program to update their ordinance to be up to date with the most current model ordinance. And so where we're at today is the village has been requested by the DNR and FEMA to update your ordinance like has been done in the past. Basically it involves some updates, some language changes, all totaled. There's about 700 changes. Most of those are spelling, renumbering of sections of the ordinance, but the meat of the ordinance is similar to what you've always had. And so with that, there's, information in here that really is being triggered by some work that was completed by the DNR along the Fox River. Back in 2015, they started a pretty comprehensive study of the Fox River, updated its flood flows and flood insurance study, and basically arrived at some new maps. Those maps basically went through a public input process that started back in probably about 2020, 2021. They had a public information meeting that was virtual back in May of 22. And kind of where we're at today is the work that the DNR did along the Fox River is destined to become effective in April of 2024. So the communities that are impacted by this updated DNR work are being asked to update their ordinance to what the DNR calls their most current model ordinance. That's what's before you tonight for discussion is this updated village ordinance. This ordinance was posted to the village's website, I believe, back in December 13th. I don't know how much public input the village staff has received since it's been posted. But in general, this is kind of a requirement to stay active as part of, as the village of Salem Lakes in the National Flood Insurance Program. So it's kind of required if you want to stay active in that and allow property owners to obtain flood insurance for those properties that may need it. As a little bit of background, that's kind of where we're at with that. What's included in the updated ordinance is some new updated maps. Those are within the ordinance. They're referenced flood insurance maps. Studies that have been done are all referenced in this ordinance so that that becomes a document that can be referenced to determine whether any given property is in or out of a flood-prone area, or floodplain area. It does add some new language for subdivisions. So should you get a new subdivision, there's some new language that basically puts some performance criteria so that all new subdivisions don't have drainage problems, aren't in flood hazard areas, what have you. It redefines in general how floodplain areas are essentially defined. And in many cases, it's pretty simple. If your property is subject to active flow or even backwater flows during high water events, 100-year flood events, it should be designated, and there should be some pretty significant restrictions as to buildings and structures that are within the floodplain areas. I think it's safe to say that local, county, state, regional, and federal agencies have worked pretty hard over the last 30 years nationwide to try to convince people to stay out of flood hazard zones for good reason, repetitive damage, whatever it may be, can cause, catastrophic conditions in some cases. As a point of reference, in the Metro Milwaukee area, just 25 years ago, there was 3,800 properties with structures that were in flood-prone areas. As of today, there's about 1,500. So there's 2,300 properties that have been removed in that area of Wisconsin. I don't know what the actual statistics are for the village or Kenosha County, but there's been a lot of hard work by the county, by the your predecessors to get people that had flood-prone properties out of those flood-prone areas and restrict the type of development you can do in flood-prone area. So that's some of the things that this updated ordinance also requires. Is if you're going to flood-proof a structure, there's new technical criteria, in order to stay safe in that area in a flood. This ordinance update is something that at a future meeting you'd be asked to adopt, whether that's the next meeting in January or one in February, that's up to you. The DNR and FEMA has a timeline where they'd like to get the municipalities completed with your updates so that they can proceed in April with their final work. And the other thing to keep in mind is, I think as the Village of Salem Lakes looks at, let's say, continued cooperation with Kenosha County on zoning and other matters that may happen in the future, I think it's safe to say that there's some countywide inconsistencies that exist right now amongst even the former Village of Silver Lake and the new Village of Salem Lakes as to how some of the mapping was done, some of the definitions. I think there's some cleanup work that probably has to happen subsequent later in 24, possibly in 25 as well. And again, it's all so that there's consistency in the village and there's consistency countywide as to how floodplains are treated. And so when someone comes to the county or the Village of Salem Lakes, it's similar to any other area of the county in terms of ordinances that pertain to floodplains. The last item that we have is really a floodplain map. We've got a map here that the audience can see. There's two maps out in the hall. One of my colleagues, Riley, and I will be out there to try to answer any questions after this presentation that anybody may have. I think the point of the map is to point out that due to the lake nature and the Fox River coming through the Village of Salem Lakes, there's pretty significant areas of floodplain throughout the village. A lot of the blues and yellows that you see on there are mapped floodplain areas. Some of those have had very involved studies and are very detailed. Some of them are more estimated and is in the yellow, but either way, there's good reason and there's historical knowledge that these properties are subject to flooding. And so, part of those reoccurring mapping updates, definitions and things like that, I think all at the end of the day work to the advantage of keeping people away from areas that can cause damage to structures. You know? And so open lands and that flood, not as big of a deal as if there is a structure in it. And so that's really the essence of this ordinance update. So I guess with that general overview, can try and answer any questions that you may have, and again, can further try to answer.
So Len, I got a question for you.
Yeah,
The areas identified in red, what does that mean?
the areas in red was the former Village of Silver Lake boundary. And when the Village of Silver Lake was a separate municipality from the former town of Salem, they had adopted some floodplain ordinances prior to the Village of Salem Lakes becoming, what it is today. And so it was just meant to show that some of the inconsistencies, when you look at the former Village of Silver Lake in the current Village of Salem Lakes, those are some cleanup work that will probably have to be done in the future.
Okay, when you put this ordinance together and you look at the Fox River here, was there any accounting for the reduced water flow in the Fox River going forward? For example, it's estimated that it's going to be 1.4 million gallons a day. Is that correct, Andy? The Fox River is not going to have as a result of the Waukesha water plant.
Something, correct.
Yeah. So is that taken into consideration when we talk about this floodplain?
Yeah, and I think what we're talking about there, Bill, is some of the base flow characteristics are changing due to some upstream conditions that have happened over time. However, I think the 100-year flood events, which is really what we're talking about here, some of the hydraulics associated with that level of storm event are probably reflected here and in the new study that the DNR did. Again, no one at the Village of Salem Lakes did these studies. This is a DNR study, pretty involved hydraulic study of the Fox River that's taken about 6 years to come to the point we're at today.
But you don't know if they took that into consideration.
I don't know as far as the base flow. I think that the 100-year rain events that triggers these probably doesn't make a whole lot of difference from the base flow.
Okay.
But it's not gonna drop the water table on the Fox River at all? We'll let, like Bill was saying with Waukesha.
Yeah, I think the diversion of some of Waukesha's flows to the Fox River Basin, now to Lake Michigan. I don't know this far south how much actual impact that would have on floodplain boundaries. But that's a question we can find out from DNR in their latest mapping update as to whether they have taken that into account, whether they saw any variations in their model.
Okay, thank you.
This is on our website? Do we know?
Do not know. There is a copy of the non-red line. Over here. They put out a red line copy.
Yeah, and I'm having trouble finding it, whatever is on there, but so I'm not quite sure yet, but I would like to put the red line version on there just so anybody who would like to see the differences is able to, because this was really helpful for me to understand what was changing, if that's possible. Yeah, and I would like to have it up there for a couple of weeks before we decide to vote on it. So I think that would be a fair thing.
At this point, this is scheduled to come back your January 22nd.
Can we put it?
We put it up tomorrow morning and make sure it'll be up until January.
Can we put it on for the first February meeting instead?
Yeah, I
That's
think
okay.
that could work. I
Okay.
think it still provides time for DNR to get it adopted.
Okay, it's a lot of, to look through, so. Right. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Move this down.
All right.
That's what this is.
Right, so 2-5. Okay. We will move on to Public Works. Number 1, discussion and possible action on awarding the bid for the Parks Tree and Brush Clearing Project in the amount of $33,676.50 to KR Contractors, Inc. for a disc golf course at the community park and a walking trail on parcel 704-120-083-2400, located at the termination of Dells Road, approximately 280 feet east of Eastwood Drive.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, Hopkins and Gant, any discussion?
Yeah, I know I've been asked by a number of residents that live back along the boundary where this walking trail is going to go in. Is there any thought given for the Parks Commission to hold like an open house, you know, put up some pictures or whatever of what this thing is going to look like, how they may or may not be impacted with this walking trail?
And you know what, we had not discussed that, but I mean, it certainly is a good idea just to have more of a visual of where the trail is. As of right now, the discussion was not to actually have it right down by the homes, you could kind of hide it up. But you know, that's certainly a great idea to explore that. I do know that a lot of their homes, like their yards have been coached a bit.
Yeah.
The property, which is good, because it's been vacant land for
Forever.
forever.
Yeah. And Shelley, those are the questions that they're asking.
Okay.
Specifically the house on the western edge where the trail would begin.
Mhm.
You're talking right along that property owner's boundary line. And it's an older woman and she's concerned about people walking through her yard instead of the trail itself.
Instead of the trailers.
Yeah. And parking was the other thing. So if this is intended to be a walking trail, do they have to walk there to get there to walk? Have we given any thought to parking?
We actually thought to adding some parking, but off of Lotus, like up on that edge, so not, they wouldn't be on Eastwood or anything.
Got it.
So it would be like people coming into the Lotus and then having some parking spots there. Before you get, you know, then get right to the trail there,
Okay,
but not on Eastwood.
thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions?
I have a comment. The highest bid here was $214,396. And we was approved $33,676. Quite a difference.
Yeah, why is there such a big difference?
I think it's just hoping they'd be the better labor.
Okay. All right.
Brother-in-law.
We had 3 really close ones. 33,000,
Mhm.
43,000, 45,000. So I think we got some good bids here.
So they're in,
Well, that just threw numbers out there.
Yeah.
And if anybody really looks at this property, I mean, there's some hilly tree, I mean, it's well overgrown in the whole shot, so what we're getting here is quite a deal.
yeah.
All right. Okay. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Great, motion carries. All right, planning and zoning, discussion and possible action regarding MOU with Kenosha County for planning, zoning, and building services.
You, the board. So if you can recall, back on December 4th, Dave Reynolds, on his last day in our office, presented to you a summary memo regarding moving the village building inspection and zoning services to Kenosha County. It's a pretty comprehensive memo that outlined all the different steps we would have to take to be able to move from safe built and full to the county. During that meeting, the board also provided direction to staff to exit the contracts with safe built and full. And we provided direction to develop an MOU with the county to cover the village between the time that they were able to exit those contracts and when a contract with the county be finalized and approved. Over the past month, the village was able to exit both the contracts and have been operating under an MOU since January first through inspection services and a hybrid arrangement since January first on zoning services. Before you this evening are two contracts to enter into professional service agreements with the county for all of these services. The county is also here. I do have those two contracts for you on your desks this evening. There is one error that I have reprinted. So just so you know, on the one that says general permitting ordinance, A5, I added one item. So bonds, impact fees and sewer connection fees will be covered or will be collected by the county and will be dispersed monthly to the village. So the only item that was left out of that was impact fees. Before Rita signs this evening, if you guys approve this, she will have the right contract in front of her to sign. If you have any questions, Emily is here to assist with answering questions.
Cassandra, I got a question for you, but it's more on the severing the contract with Safe Built. Have the village and Safe Built come to a finalized number as to how much we owe them?
So, I've worked with Ramsey to submit a letter to them. The letter indicated the discrepancies between what they billed us for and what we agreed to pay. I have heard absolutely nothing since I have submitted that letter to them, but they also have not been here to provide services. So the answer to that is, I think so, but I don't.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I just have a question on process. So Andy, you might help with this too, how the process will work for our residents. You know, from kind of start to finish.
In regards to permitting or in zoning and projects?
All of the above.
All the above, okay, so if we take the permitting process, basically the process would be similar to what it has been, although we're not gonna have an online component. And we would really like for citizens to be able to use that for the most part, because it makes it the easiest for them and it's most convenient for them to be able to apply online. But certainly emails and phone calls will be managing and would be able to start the permit process any of those ways. Certainly we can see people, but we want to encourage to start out, if it's not going to be online, that they would phone call and set up appointments so we can make sure we have the right people available, meet with the citizens for when they're looking to apply. And then once that happens and it just goes through the process, if it's just a plain zoning ordinance, it gets reviewed by staff and then issued online and through email. And then if it was a building permit, it would be the same way. And if it was a building and zoning permit, it would be done the same way, except there'd be, it would be split and reviewed. And at the time, at the end, it'd be issued. From a standpoint of like projects, if there's someone looking to do anything from a rezone, comp plan change, conditional use permit, a plat, a land division, I mean, that's gonna be a phone call to our office, which we then have set up to meet with village staff twice a month. We're gonna have timeframes open that we can slot the developers or people that are looking to do those changes and then meet with them and start the discussion and go through all that to the point where they would then apply and then they would be, you know, to the village, and then they would be coming before the village for approval from the planning commission and for.
But a standard permit, it's a one-stop shop. They don't have to go to you first, then here to get it. It's gonna, everything is gonna go through you guys.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so in the past, obviously, when the village was the town and the county had the zoning and the town had the building inspections, it was that situation of going to two places. And now it's all in one location and online, so it's one application to get it all. Hopefully, we can do that with not even really having to have anyone come to the office if that's possible.
Sounds good.
Do you
Thank
have
Andy.
office hours?
Well, so we're open
But-
8 to 12, 1 to 5, and then the building inspector is there on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 11.
Okay,
And obviously, always by phone, so he's able to have, you know, the whole day, he's always gonna be available.
okay. And then as far as scheduling inspections, is that something that you can go online and just put your information in and do it that way, or is it a phone
We're
call?
working towards
Okay.
So currently, it's gonna be, with a phone call, that's how it's gonna initiate it.
Mhm.
But we do have in the software the ability to be able to, a person to schedule it. And so we've had some discussions with the building inspector that we'd like to implement that portion of our software. So we're working on that part.
Okay, and would it eventually maybe email the person back that they passed, failed, or?
Yeah, we're working on that part too, because the software has a lot of capabilities.
Mhm.
And we haven't dived into all of that yet, but as we're kind of moving with the village, the volume is basically going to necessitate that to occur.
Yeah.
And so we are working on being able to do that so that in an inspection, once he hits final, they'll send him an email and they'll know it. So even if they weren't on site, he doesn't have to do a phone.
Okay.
So there's a lot of aspects that can make the job easier for everyone.
Mhm. Anyone have any other questions?
I don't have any questions.
No?
I'd make a motion to move forward with our memo of understanding.
All right, so Dennis is,
Actually, I could
Oh.
suggest a modification, so you'll actually move forward with the two contracts. As I just will present those to you.
Right, with that change. They-
a motion to approve, move forward with the two contracts as presented, right?
One at a time. Or doesn't matter.
I think we can do them both, can't we, Ramsey? We can do them both at the same time, right?
We can do them individually.
Okay. All right, Dennis?
I'll take number one.
All right, so a motion to approve the
General permitting ordinance.
general permitting ordinance. First was by Mr. Faber,
Second.
second by Mr. Hopkins. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then the second would be the,
General zoning and shoreline floodplain zoning ordinance.
Contract that references that. One of them is for, it's for the
motion.
building and zoning.
Yeah.
It's a building inspection.
Make a motion to approve the county to administer the village's zoning and shoreline floodplain ordinance.
I'll second it.
Okay, Hopkins and Faber, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you, Andy. Okay, number two, discussion and possible action on ordinance 2024.01-74, an ordinance amending the definition of building height in the Salem Lakes Municipal Code. Brian, do you have this that you could put up on the screen?
Maybe Brad can explain this.
Yeah. So we get up there. Brian, did you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. And then Brad, if you can kind of talk to this one, that would be great.
Yeah, what we're doing is we're reverting back to the language we used to have when we were under Kenosha County zoning. Some reason that I can't explain in 2021, it was changed to the current language that we have. The current language, if applied correctly, makes for possibly awkward looking roof lines for larger span buildings. You know, Brian, he builds larger span buildings. We discussed this and we see no reason why we should not revert back to the county language, because they'll be implementing our zoning. Anyways, it keeps it consistent, keeps the buildings looking uniform. My recommendation is for approval.
Okay.
But is there a, in your wording here, is there a specific height as far as, I know a detached garage is 15 feet or 21 feet or whatever, but it goes by square footage or what? How's it go?
The heights stay the same.
Okay,
It's just a definition that we're changing is how it's calculated. So none of the heights are being modified.
okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
I don't have any.
right.
Make a motion to approve this.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Faber,
I'll second.
second by Gant. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Bill? Bill, did you say aye? Okay. Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Move on to the clerk's office, selection of trustee candidates to establish ballot order for the 2024 spring election.
I need a volunteer, please, a resident. You can pull the.
Just the one who's taking a nap.
So you can announce the names that we're gonna have on our ballot. I just need someone to come up, a resident, please, to pull these out for me and then call the names, please.
Oh, this is the
Thank you.
numbering.
Thanks for being a team
And
player.
what is your name? I'm sorry.
Mary. Brainiac, like Brainiac.
Okay, I like that. Thank you.
Okay, so just.
Yes, ma'am. You want to say, once you pick the first one, I want to say first person to be placed on the ballot. So-
I'm so nervous.
Boy, you gotta unfold the whole thing.
Last time it was all just. Oh. Peter.
Holy.
Holy.
P-O-L-I.
Okay, Peter Polly, first pick to be placed on the ballot. Yes.
Oh, Lord. Bill Hopkins.
Okay, Bill Hopkins will be second pick to be placed on the ballot.
Ron Gant.
Mr. Ron Gant, third to be placed on the ballot.
Residents only can clap.
Yeah. And we have the last, Dennis Faber.
And Mr. Dennis Faber to be placed fourth on the ballot. Thank you very much, Ms. Mary.
Great. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
They're in reverse.
I got it.
ooh, it's in alphabetical order, but reverse, yeah. Okay, number 2, approve vouchers from December 12th, 2023 through January 8th, 2024 in the amount of $778,000, $778,932.20.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, Hopkins in favor. I have one question, and that would be the insurance payment for workman's comp. Is that, is it like an end of the year thing or something?
I don't have that in front of me. I know our renewal terms for workman's comp started in November.
They did, okay. That's what I wasn't sure if that was a February thing or a, okay. Any other questions on any of the vouchers? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, approve minutes from December 11th, 2023.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Hopkins and Gant. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Move on to the administrator's office. Number 1, discussion of possible action on cold storage lease with Horn Trieber Feed at $525 per month.
So move. So you need more?
For the next few, so I better just come prepared. All right, so thank you very much. Recall that in fall of 2023, the village board entered into a contract with the Bessett Group for real estate services. There are 3 realtors with this group that can all perform services for us, including getting fair market value for village properties. The Bessett Group did go out and take a look at the property that is at 11200 to 58 Court in Trieber. This is the old village garage where you go for yard waste. Part of that facility is used by Trieber Feed for storage of their goods. When they completed the site visit of the site, they provided what fair market value of that site is. The site is considered cold storage and does not have access to water or heat. The only utility that it offers is electricity. Upon review of similar properties, the Bessic Group determined that fair market value of that site is $525 per month plus half of the average monthly utility bill, which is $50. It is half of the monthly utility bill because the village does use half of that building and it is on 1 meter. So we went back and did an audit of the last year's utility bills and the average every month happens to be $50. So that is what we were recommending. I did meet with Jason Hilbert from Corner Tree River Feed, who is the owner and manager of the feed store. He has agreed to the fair market value and terms and conditions in the proposed lease agreement that is before you this evening. I do have a copy of it. He has already agreed contingent upon, of course, your approval this evening and decided contingent upon your approval this evening.
I don't have any questions, and I'll second Bill's motion.
So this is a 3-unit storage garage facility, right? Is it just 1 unit that's in there out of the 3?
Yeah, it's unit 3,
Right,
the third bay.
yes.
Bay 3
Mhm.
is what is occupied by Corner Tree. The other 2 are used by the village in some capacity. There was not a lease on it in the past, so there is a lease on it going forward.
Look at the rest of them now.
Okay, so we have a, thank you, a motion by Mr. Barheit, seconded by Mr. Faber. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Number 2, a discussion of village vacancies regarding the treasurer.
Thank you. So this evening, I'm sure you are all aware that our treasurer has announced that she will be retiring at the end of February. So her last day in office will be at the end of February. And then she will be available on a limited basis in the month of March if it's absolutely necessary. So.
You got nothing better to do.
So having said that, we really need to expedite the process of advertising and hiring for that position. So what I have done is gone through and created, everyone see here, a job posting announcement for the position. This is a absolutely essential position in your village. You cannot operate a village without a treasurer. I am recommending changing the title of the treasurer to a finance director / treasurer. There are a number of reasons for that. One of the reasons is I would like to see the village work towards changing the way that we budget to a category-based budget instead of a line item budget. Also, I would like to redo the organizational chart to put all of your finance functions underneath of the treasurer / finance director. And also working on modifying and updating many of our fiscal policies. With that, a treasurer can do an excellent job. However, by changing the title to a finance director / treasurer, I think you will garner a wider pool of applicants. And I think that that is necessary at this time for the village. So in this, it talks about who the village is, who the community is, talks a little bit about our demographics. If you go to the next page, talks about the village organization, the departments within the village, boards and commissions within the village. It really kind of tells a story about who we are and what we might be looking for. On the next page, it talks about what the department is for finance, and what the total budget is, how many staff would be within that department, which would be 4 full-time equivalent finance employees that service 4 departments. It talks about what some of the opportunities would be for the next finance director or treasurer, which talks about some of our budget topics that I just mentioned. And then also updating some of our capital improvement plans and financial policies, et cetera. On the next page, talks about some of the basic qualification requirements for hiring this individual. And then also some additional desired skills. This is not the job description. This is a job posting. The job description will be much, much more detailed. This is just simply what you will put out there on the World Wide Web to try to garner interest in the position. And then on the last page, It talks about compensation and benefits and how to apply. The minimum salary for this position is listed as 70,000, depending on qualifications, with the hiring range being negotiable. Your current treasurer makes about 74,000. So you want to start below that, and then of course have somewhat flexible negotiations to be able to allow for something similar. And that is what I have for this. I do have the deadline for applications being January 31st. That is an aggressive timeline. We will see what kinds of candidates we get in that duration. But if we're going to do this and have somebody on board before Chris is not, I would appreciate an expedited timeline because I am not a finance director or a treasurer and I really prefer not to do all of that.
Got chains and padlocks, I'm just changing.
So if we could try to expedite that, that would be fantastic to have somebody on board prior to Chris's last day, even a week or two of overlap. If possible. I don't know if that is not maybe realistic, but it's hopeful.
Right.
So with your permission this evening, I will post this tomorrow. And if you need more time, that's fine too.
Well, I have to tell you, I was pretty excited when I opened this up quite early this morning and looked it over. I told you, I think you did a fantastic job. It's very professional. I really like all the work that you put in here. So I am going to make the motion to approve this posting as is. Seconded by Mr. Hopkins. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And just one extra note is that we will use this exact same format for the fire chief. So when we are ready to advertise for that position, we will use the same format for that. We are not in a hurry to advertise for that position, as Al Carr has indicated that he can stay for a duration unspecified, but not to exceed a year. So we don't have to pass it off that one. We can slow off that one and make sure we've got all our ducks in a row before we post it. So that gives us some flexibility, which is great. On the treasurer position, there's not a lot of time. So thank you for your approval on that this evening.
Absolutely.
And who knows, he may change his mind after a year.
One other question with this, I'm sorry, I should have asked ahead of time, but where will you be posting this?
This will be posted on our village website. I'm also going to reach out to the GFOA, which is the Government Finance Organization of America, and see where we can post that. There's a Wisconsin chapter, an Illinois chapter, national chapter. And that's where really a lot of people that are in this specific profession. There's also the Wisconsin City and County Managers Association that I'll be asking to post it on there too. And I'll see what other areas that Chris knows that we can post that maybe in
The league, maybe? Do we post it at the league? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm sure there are a number of places, but that's my short list at the moment, as well as whatever ones Chris knows.
Okay. And then we'll probably just have to work on a process for interviewing and, you know, all of that. So good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, with that, we are going to move on to our closed session. Number one, closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 sub 1 sub E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Specifically for lease negotiation with Lake Shangri-La Woodland Homeowners Association, Inc.
So moved.
Okay, Hopkins, can I get a second?
I'll second.
Hopkins in favor, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? A first by Mr. Gant and a second by Mr. Faber with a unanimous vote to reconvene into open session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85 sub 2 for possible discussion and or action concerning any matter discussed in closed session.
Motion to deny any amendments to the lease agreement between the Village of Salem Lakes and the Lake Shangri-La Parks Committee,
Homeowners Association.
Homeowners Association.
Homeowners.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right, so a first by Mr. Hopkins, a second by Mr. Barheit,
Yes.
Mr. Gant,
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins.
Yes.
Mr. Faber,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Motion to deny is approved and amendment is approved.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, Mr. Hopkins made a motion to adjourn,
Second.
second by Mr. Gant, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, anyone opposed? All right, we are.